Hi, it's Robert Ohado, and welcome back to The Power of Psycho-Spiritual Intuition, a 3-part web course. This is Lesson 2, Archetypes and your Esteem-Systems. In this lesson, I'll teach you the difference between your psychic and intuitive systems, the 4 categories of archetypes that comprise your soul contract, archetypes and Esteem-Systems. We're also going to look at archetypes as the software of your psyche, and in that regard, we're going to take a deep look at how the subconscious mind recruits archetypes to manage your safety, security, esteem, and survival. Then we're going to pivot into recognizing when you've hit a bottom with a shadow archetype, what that feels like, what that looks like in your system, and then pivot right into archetypes as holographic health, as part of your holographic health. And then we'll finish with how to not take any action in your life that causes any self-disconnection, and what it takes to traverse the mystical path back to truth. I do hope you enjoy Lesson 2, Archetypes and your Esteem-Systems.
So, we're going to continue with what we did yesterday and kind of branch out into some new territory and open up some channels for you to be ready for Carolyn when she gets here. Let's remember this is a workshop on medical and spiritual intuition. And I'm going to so what I'm going to do now is, this is coming from my work that complements Carolyn's work. So, I'm not Carolyn Mace, clearly, and I'm not a medical intuitive, but I am an intuitive. And what I've done in profiling many people and reading their contracts, their psyches, is I've developed my own system of how to see you. And so I'm going to introduce you a little bit more in depth to that system. And then what I love, and this is why Carolyn and I have taught together for almost 2 decades now, is that our systems always complement each other. So what I'm going to say today and bring you into in terms of how to manage, remember this is really about understanding yourself holographically and managing your power, managing your esteem, managing your choices. And now today we're going to look at managing your patterns. So it's a lot about understanding yourself as a system of patterns. And now I'm going to introduce the word archetype. So what archetypes are a way of taking a pattern and giving it a name. So if you find yourself still struggling with that multisyllabic word, archetype, I would keep it simple for you and say, listen, why don't you just take an inventory of your patterns and give them names? So if I said to you, one that's very easy, I think is something like the bully. You know that pattern. You know when someone's bullying somebody. You know they're pushing around, emasculating somebody, and you give it a name. That the person has the archetype of the bully, or the archetype of the bully is active in their psyche, in their system. So the way that I see you, and I'm going to do some languaging and defining of things for you so that you understand my map of you. And then you can map yourself through that. But the way I see you is your system to me of various patterns, and I almost look at it as if you're a system of software, different technology. So I want to introduce you today to how that affects your health, because your health is a report card of your system. It talks a lot, and let's remember, health is holographic. That term is holographic. We're not just talking about your physical health. I'm talking about your psycho-spiritual health, your mental health, your emotional health. All of your levels and channels of health that you have, dimensions of your health. So when I say that word, just remember I'm saying that from a holographic viewpoint. That said, your health is a report card of how your system's operating. And there's something organic in the nature of life itself that wants systems to operate holistically in a way that's economically sound, ecologically sound. So when you have leaks in your system or power loss in your system, you're not operating at an optimal kind of ecology where everything's working in concert with the other and you're healthy, right? So health is, if you're healthy, you got all your systems running, relatively speaking, in concert with each other in a way that's systematically optimal. You guys with me? So last night we talked a lot about psychic viruses and how we're in this new era of needing to manage health differently. So I introduced you to what a psychic virus is. It's a code that can get into your system and replicate itself and hijack your system and take you over. And the next thing you know, you're going along with the tribe. You're going along with whatever's happening in the environment, just like I gave you the example of Nazi Germany. And your soul's now getting collapsed out. So today we're going to talk about that process, that phenomena in yourself. And we're also going to talk about how do you bring the soul back in? How do you get to a place where if you're going to get into the dirtiness of getting contaminated from psychic viruses and psychic debris, which is everywhere now, because we have this thing called the internet. So we are actually now more contaminated than we've ever been, ever, on a psychic level. Do you guys all relate to that? Yeah, right? Like we're just dirty. And not the good dirty, because there is a good dirty. But we're contaminated. Have you ever taken a break from social media or online and realized then how just toxic it all is? It's crazy. I just had a break. I always go to Aspen for a week every year with a bunch of buddies of mine. And we ski and we drink and we have fun and ski and drink and have fun and repeat for a week. But what I love about it is I'm not online. Like I'm not in my work mind, I'm not in anything. And what I realized this particular trip was I didn't want to come back to online. I was like, God, I gotta go back to that. So that's just to make a point that you may not even see how much is hitting your system all the time because it's been normalized. It's been normalized. So some of the more practical ground level ways that you can take care of your own psychic hygiene is just limit your online exposure. And then if you can't, that's when you get curious as to, well, why do I just compulsively get on Facebook or this app or this news feed? And then start to get to know that part of yourself. But back to the main veins here of your holographic nature and health and being in a new era of contamination, and which paradoxically is also a new era of connection. So there's some main ways that you're going to get contaminated just in a general sense. One is through your empathy, your emotional system, your psychic system. And let me define what it means to be psychic versus intuitive, and what psychic information is versus intuitive information. So psychic information, and the word psyche, because someone came up to me at breakfast, was like, what does psyche even mean? I'm like, that's a great question, because I might be approaching it from a different place than all of you. Psyche means your whole being as a system to me. So I don't see it as just your mind. I don't see it as just your body. I see it as this holographic, interrelated system of who you are. And in your psyche, in this system, you've got patterns, you've got trauma, you've got your soul, you've got your intuitive system, you have your emotional system, your mental system, all these systems going on. So for me, that's your psyche. Now, what is psychic information and what does it mean just to be psychic? If you understand the Greek word psyche, which to them meant soul, and it means something a little different these days, and the word psychic, which comes from that word, it simply means your capacity, being psychic, means your capacity to meld your psyche with another person's psyche. So, say it another way, to meld your field with another person's field. And in doing so, track with me. What gets connected? Your emotional system gets connected. Your mental system gets connected. And if you're really in deep, your intuitive system's now going to mesh with their intuitive system. And the point is, you guys have already done this your whole life. You've already meshed yourself with other people, for better or for worse, or somewhere in between. So you already know what it feels like to have your system melded to another, and not just one person. You can meld it to a group. You can meld it to a belief system. So your psyche and being psychic is simply that. I feel beyond my own field. Beyond my own field, I touch into other fields and they touch into me. So someone who's highly psychic will walk into a room and let's say we were having an argument in here. They would feel that energy and go, there was some bad vibes in here about 5 minutes ago. Or like when I went to Dachau, the concentration camp outside of Munich, and you walk into one of the original structures and you feel the imprint of the land. You feel there's nothing that can even describe, because the psychic field is imprinted. And you could be blindfolded and go in there and go, whoa, get me out. Something dark happened here. Okay, so that's psychic. So I want you to understand your psychic system, because it is different than your intuitive system, and then there's going to be a place where they both meet. So when I'm doing readings on people, I'm reading the hologram of them. I'm also reading, okay, how contaminated is your psychic system and why? And when you look at that phenomena of contamination, what gets you, I had you all, for your homework, right? Ask how do you get psychically dirty? Well, expanding on to that answer is, well, you're going to get psychically dirty by the fields you meld with, the energetic spaces you connect with. So being psychic is just that, a capacity to maybe empathically meld and expand your field into someone else. So if I'm psychic and I'm going to feel you, and it's a great skill if you're a counselor, if you're a therapist, because if someone's depressed, you can actually feel that in their system. You feel their depression. And so you go into their system and you're like, okay, you're really depressed. So as an intuitive, that skill set of being psychic is also something that gave me data. But I had to be very clear on, if I was merging with someone else's field in a psychic way, that I wasn't going to get spiritual instruction only out of that. That's what intuition offers. Being psychic is like absorbing a noun about someone. Oh, you're depressed. Okay, now what? You're angry. Okay, great. Now what? I feel you. I'm feeling you in my own emotional system. I've connected and focused into you. But what do we do with this? And that question is answered intuitively. So your intuitive channel is a channel of instruction. It's a channel of informational action. If being psychic is being able to absorb verbs, or rather nouns from people, then being intuitive is about the verb. What do you do with that? So I would feel someone's depression, or I would feel, like I gave you the example of the reading I did on the man that had a heart problem. I felt that in my heart. I felt it somatically in this area of myself while I was reading him. And that's how I knew it was a physical thing, not just something in his psychic field only, because it came through strong for me. But I had to go, to get what the read on that was, I had to go, okay, something's up with his heart. Give me the read. When you say give me the read, that's a different channel. Do you guys get this? So being intuitive, or intuitive information, is coming from a different zone. It is about transformation. It is about healing. It is about understanding a technical schemata of why a system's doing what it's doing, why your system is doing what it's doing. So when you look at this technically, okay, I'm psychic, I'm going to go into a space and feel things through empathy, through my emotional system, through my nervous system. But then intuition's different. It doesn't have emotional debris in it. It just has knowing, has instruction. Sometimes, and this is where you get into, I want you to start feeling your own system out, all right? So how does your intuitive system talk to you? How does your psychic system talk to you? It's really useful to separate them out. Eventually we're going to bring them back together, but for now, separate them out. Some homework. I don't know when you're going to do it, but you're going to do it. So feel yourself. I feel my psychic system in spaces, and I feel people, and then what do you do with that? One, do you mistake someone else's field for your own? We're back to this question. What are the consequences of that? Well, I'll tell you, your compass is going to get spun around in terms of what to do, because you're in someone else's field. Now, thread this again. what patterns get you into psychic contamination. I mentioned a primary one, and we're going to go through a few more later, the codependent empath. What is the codependent archetype? What is that pattern? It's a pattern that, so I'm going to introduce you to some new concepts here from my work. What I begin to realize about in reading people is that your system is a genius, your human system. And as we grow up and we go through childhood, your system downloads patterns to help you with your safety, security, esteem, and survival. Safety, security, esteem, and survival. And I call these archetypes of survival adaptation. So what I begin to read in people is that their system would download a pattern to help them get through a childhood trauma, or just childhood, which was just one big trauma for probably most of us, right, in some way. But more than that, if we got to a base ground zero where all of us could go, yes, my system adapted patterns to manage that, I'm going to come back to a shame-based culture and say, listen, all of you in this room were wounded by a shame-based culture. And I'll even extend that to you were also wounded by the pattern of patriarchy, even if you're a man. Why would I say that? Well, if you're a man in patriarchy, you don't get access to the feminine half of your psyche. Big boys don't cry in a patriarchy. You're the man. But as a holistic being, you have a feminine half of your psyche. And conversely, flip it to women. You don't get access to the masculine half of your psyche. We're taught we project each away to the other. And in the old school marriage model, that's what marriage was. I'm going to get my other half. Yeah, the other half of your psyche. Don't play with me. So, but I want to establish a baseline. Because then after the baseline, we go into our own contracts. We go into our own childhoods. We go into our own experiences, our own journeys. But at a base level, all of you in this room, if I read any of you, I would get that, and I would get that profile. And then I'd see, hey, what did your system do to manage the patriarchal pattern of culture and the shame of culture? So you're not 5 years old, 3 years old, 2 years old going, I think the codependent would be a great option. Ooh, yeah. Activate that now. Or maybe you were, I don't know, maybe some of you were in your diapers thinking about it, I don't know. But what I'm saying is that this is an automated subconscious process. And this is where I have an undergrad in psychology, and this is where I'm glad for that. Because I kind of always had this empiricist in me doing readings where I wanted to look at stuff from a place that was more stats and rats based, like how does that work, but get it on the ground level of human psychology. So I'm on the ground level of what the human psyche does, and no one's opted out of this. Your subconscious mind just downloaded, for example, the codependent. Why would you download the codependent empath archetype? Well, I would have to say first, a lot of you came in as souls, just on a soul level. You bring something into this life with you. You're not just written on by culture and your family and adapting to the crazy of all that. You come in on a soul level with patterns and graces and forces. You all feel that, right? There's just something in you that was there that you brought in with you that you didn't sit down and strategize and create. It's part of who you are. And people feel that and they recognize that in you. And those you can also, I call these archetypes of soul. You can look at those as archetypes as well. So one of the archetypes I've always had as a teacher, I've always been a teacher. I could take a class and within a year, that someone would be asking me to teach it. It's just there. I've always been a wise counselor. I was little Buddha in Taekwondo at 13 years old at tournaments giving adults relationship advice, and I had no idea what the hell I was saying, but it was good. And I got a reputation, and they kept coming back for more. Can you just see me in my little outfit? Break up with him. He's bad for you. No. So, roundhouse that right now. But you're all the same. I'm mapping all of us, and then as I do this, I want you to find you in it, right? But back to these archetypes of survival adaptation and what they are, they're just things your subconscious downloaded to help you survive. Now, what's at stake in childhood for survival? Your parents' approval, your parents liking you, your parents wanting to find you of value enough to clothe you, feed you, take care of you, and not abandon you. And that's wired in at a very instinctual level. And the subconscious is wired into that. This is how the human species evolved. Because without parents, and if you're a kid, you're likely not going to make it. So that said, your subconscious is looking around and going, what do I need to do to position myself in a place in relationship to my parents where they value me, they want me? Because without that, I'm done. And this is where archetypes of survival adaptation download and come in. Now, the codependent and the empath. Most of you were born on a soul level with a capacity to feel more than your field. That's the empath. I can feel more than my own field. I'm sensitive enough, I'm porous enough that I can actually feel beyond just my space. And if I focus enough, I might be able to go across the globe and feel something. Now, we're not taught that as kids, but it doesn't matter, it's already online. You were born with this wiring. Now, enter into your family system and perhaps the crazy of your parents. You're feeling them from the time you're born. You're feeling your mother's anxiousness. You're feeling your father's need to check out through alcoholism. You're feeling it all. Now, what do you think you're doing as a kid while you feel that? You're going, I think what makes good sense here might be the codependent. It might be, and what is the codependent? I'm going to leave myself and go and manage what you feel so I get back to my own safety, security, esteem, and survival. Because when we're kids, it's exactly how it rolls. You've got to go to the forces that can work, produce income, feed you, clothe you, because you can't do that yet. So you route your choice and your power and your survival through the adults in the room. And you do that through the codependent. I am codependent to you being happy, you liking me, you thinking I'm of value. So what I'll do is I'm going to take in information from you psychically that lets me feel when you don't like me, so I can figure out how to get you to like me. You guys tracking with this? Too much, maybe? And this is just one example. So I want you to understand that these patterns, these archetypes that come online when you're a child, they saved your ass, straight up. And a lot of times when we get, here's the challenge, is we take this technology into adulthood and then we're a mess, right? So now you're still 5 years old and you're codependent in your marriage, with your own kids, in your workplace. And you wonder why, at the end of the day, there's nothing left. There's no core center. There's no sense of self-ownership and possession and sort of authentic authority in your life that comes from something in you, because you're running on old technology that isn't appropriate for a 40-year-old who has a destiny. Now let's throw in destiny archetypes. So I named Soul, come in with you. Archetypes of survival adaptation are ones that you adapted in childhood to survive. You didn't consciously strategize them, they just downloaded. Then we enter into this new level of your soul contract. And by the way, all this is part of your sacred contract. You agreed to all of this. This is all part of it. But then destiny archetypes are patterns and forces that you were born to mature with. They're not innate. You have a contract, for example, to become an entrepreneur. It's not one you were born with. To become an artist. To become an abundant artist. Maybe to become a new manifestation of healer. So at a base level, and we're going to get to these other archetypes that really do help you keep psychically clean and grounded, but I'll introduce you to the mystical parents right now. Each of you in this room has a sacred contract to develop into mystical parents. You become the parents to your own inner child that you didn't get growing up. You're under contract for that. And most of the time we project that onto our spouse, we project that onto our boss, we project it outside of us onto our elected leaders, as if everyone's supposed to be our parent. And a better one than the ones we grew up with. When in fact, it's an inner feng shui shift where you go, you know what? So long as I am not capable of adequately parenting my own inner child, you know what's going to happen? Is that inner child's just going to activate the old technology it knew and downloaded from childhood and keep that running. Because that's what it knows. Without a spiritual intervention with new technology that we'll say soul technology, that's what you're going to do. And to me, I don't look at it as if you're less than or more than. It's technical. It's technical. It's just it's a system. So part of, for me, this work it's about getting this new options, new technology, new perspectives, and knowing how to read this system in a way where you can say, okay, my inner child's freaking out. The pattern it uses in freak out is the codependent. And then check this out, there's a loop here in the codependent. So you leave yourself to go manage other people, to get them to like you, to get them to value you, get them, now this is the key word, not to abandon you. Not to abandon. The primary fear of the child archetype is abandonment, period. A child that's abused in a home will lie to social services about the abuse it's going through well before it'll admit the abuse it's receiving because it doesn't want to be abandoned by its parents. And I'm talking real psychological statistics here. So you have to know your child, its primary thing it's always defending is abandonment. Now, in the codependent pattern, what better way to self-abandon? As soon as you activate that technology, you've already abandoned yourself. You're not there. So then the child freaks out more, and then you get more codependent, and the child freaks out more, and you get more codependent until you finally hit a bottom. And what does that often look like? A health crisis. I've done so many readings where I could see how somebody had a health intervention of the big variety, cancer, something really drastic that went from chronic to urgent, life or death. And I could many readings see, okay, this is to get you to stop and go, wait a minute, this technology will kill me. And I've got to stop the system, because what better way for heaven to get your attention than your life being on the line to wake you up to go, wait a minute, I can't go manage those people because if I do, I'll die. For once, I need them to help manage me. And it'll jam the whole system. There's many people, I don't know if you know people that, or maybe you experience this, that get cancer, and their family feels put off by it because you can't be our codependent rescuer anymore. You guys ever experience that? So the family system is built on you playing this role, and when you can't play that role anymore, it's like, well, what's wrong with you? You have cancer? Well, get over it. We need your codependent ass up and running. Come on. I need rescued next week. Where are you going to be? Chemo? Forget it. So just to make a point, I'm laying baselines down here for all of you to extrapolate for your own self. Once again, I'm teaching you how to read yourself through my systems. Now, what has to happen here is that bottom, and for everyone it's going to be a different bottom, and every archetype like the codependent will have the same phenomena happen. And once again, if we went holistic on health, it doesn't have to be something in your body. You can end up in a very severe depression. And it is divine intervention. It's your psyche. It's the gods working through your psyche and going, enough. Enough. Now, back to destiny archetypes. Enough, why? Because you were meant for more. And to go toward the more, you're going to need different technology. You cannot run a business on the codependent archetype. It'll kill you. Are you kidding me? You'll be going around employee to employee. Are you happy? Are you okay? Do you need anything? Instead of, I'm the king or queen here. This is what I need. Get on it. Do you guys feel that, though? So I'm giving you examples of entrepreneur is one of the destiny archetypes I've seen in a lot of contracts. And you all will have your own. And more than one. You've got a destiny. You're here to, your soul's here to explore more than you've ever been. And so I want you to pay attention to what I'm about ready to say, because this is big. Every move toward destiny is a move toward the unknown. Now, you've got to hear that, and that's got to get in, because the old technology, the codependent in you, the scapegoat in you, the victim in you, you know that. You already know that. That's familiar territory. That's why your system, you, will opt toward that before you go toward, I don't know that. And because I don't, you know what? I can't trust that, but I can trust my codependent. It's worked for me thus far. And it did perhaps really work for a time, but it can't work anymore. Not for what you were born to become. So I want you to take a pause and think and feel yourself for a minute. And I'm going to have you close your eyes actually, and just go in for just a minute and feel where you're at and what I'm saying. I'm going to do a little guided meditation here for you. So take a couple deep breaths. And just arrive once again into Sedona, into the room. Arrive into your hologram. And as I guide this, there's nothing to get right or wrong. I just want you to witness whatever your psyche generates for you, whatever information your intuitive system is ready to reveal. Centering down, staying with your deep breaths. Now, as I say this question, just observe. What primary pattern as an adaptation to survive when you were younger is active now in your life? And how does that pattern open you to psychic contamination? Pull you out of your power and disconnect you from yourself. There's nothing to judge here, it's just whatever comes up. See if you can't sense where that pattern comes from and why your psyche downloaded it. And we want to give that pattern a bow of honor, because it really may have helped you out before. And now we're going to turn to your destiny. And I want you just to observe whatever comes up as I ask, what new pattern wants to activate now? And replace that pattern, the pattern from your past that's still alive and well. Take a couple more deep breaths. And when you're ready, we're just going to come back. So this is where we're going to take everything I'm saying and actually get into your system. And whatever came up, make some notes if you need to for a few moments. Destiny archetypes are the forces and patterns your soul agreed to work with in this lifetime to become and explore creation in a new way that your soul's never done. And each of you have those. They will feel, I've done many readings where I'll say to someone, you know, you have the entrepreneur in your contract, or you have the strategist, And they'll go, what are you even talking about? What are you smoking in Colorado? Because what, really? And that's how you know it's a destiny archetype. It feels funky. It feels foreign. But if I took you into your life and showed you how your life as a pattern consistently pressured you toward this development, you'd go, oh, you're right. You're absolutely right. I keep getting pushed to be a teacher. I keep getting pushed to be a writer. And it's so uncomfortable, but there's something in me that wants to do it too. Both are true. That's a destiny archetype. And oftentimes, they won't come online until you've hit a tipping point of transformation enough to afford them. You'll go into debt, serious debt in your system, holographic debt, in a pattern whose time has come to deactivate. So the codependent, we all know the debt of that, right? What about the shadow rescuer? Now, I got to introduce you to something, because I'm sure some of you asked me, well, what's the thing that gets you most contaminated? What's the doorway of contamination? I mentioned last night that there's something called focus, what you focus on. And there's also empathy. Those two things in you will open you up psychically. And that's just a technical thing. It's not right or wrong. You maybe want to do that if you're in a therapy session with someone. You want to open up into them to help them. But you go in knowing your boundary and your system and theirs. And you don't confuse them. The other thread of this, though, there's another piece here around what opens you up to, and it's underneath what I just said. So if I said to you, hey, what you focus on will contaminate you, opens you up to being contaminated, possibly. The next question is, well, why would you focus on something? What motivates focus? And now we're into patterns. Now we're into an archetype. But then we have to go beneath that archetype and go, well, what's that archetype managing? What is the archetype managing? When you look at your survival archetypes of adaptation, if you want to come to know why they're there, the thread to that is, what does it manage for me? And there's going to be a common thread for all of them that I'm going to introduce you to now, and that is your esteem system. So, what do I mean by that? Each of you, to me, you're an esteem system. You're a walking esteem system. What is an esteem system? It's a primary way that you are engineered to get value in life. It's how you get value in life. What is esteem? It's self-value. If you esteem something, you give it value. So you have a system of value management. And your archetypes manage. Think of it this way. You have a system of value management, and then you have archetypes that manage that system. You guys with me? So I'm going to, of course, explain it a little bit more. So let's start where we all pretty much began, in low esteem, shall we? In a culture that tells us from birth we're screwed, and that there's something inherently wrong with us, thank you, shame, we're laying the groundwork of a certain esteem system. It's a shame-based esteem system. So what does that actually look like? What does that read out as? It reads out as this: hey, you're messed up inherently, and by the way, you better start finding a way to redeem yourself, because you lowly wretch, you're messed up inherently. And so we have this motivation from birth, and you're born and I want you to think of yourself this way, because this is actually how I read you. I'm going to give you a little schemata of what it looks like in terms of your holographic influences. Let's just say you're the soul up here, and don't worry if you can't read it. You can take photos later if you want, but this is really more for me, because I get so holographic, I got to keep on track. You're born into, think of your soul creating its contract. You're looking at Earth School, you're like, yeah, it looks good. Shame-based planet, okay, cool. Let's work with that. You're born into culture, and I'm just presenting to you layers of influence that are in your system already. But your soul's fusing into these energies, this matrix, these dynamics. And of course, the end game is you end up in this infant body. But there's so much in that body There's so many dimensional influences informing that little baby, you. Culture, the patterns of culture, where things are going on in history, and in the moment in history and its march forward. There were patterns already managing reality on this planet well before you were born. You just fused right into them. What, you think they just showed up because you're here? No. So, you're coming down, you're being born, and just imagine each level of these energetic parts of the matrix are fusing into you as you're being born. So you go through culture, then, and this is a rough schemata, the zeitgeist and social energies and patterns, and then you end up in the family energies and patterns, and then you end up in your body. There's so much code, if you will, in the infant body that you were born into, in your body now. And then you start to mature. And then the process, if we went to what is a mystical path, reverses. So your soul's fusing into the nervous system of the infant body. It's fused into the matrix here. And then as you're growing and maturing, your soul's now becoming more into this system. And now you've got this interesting inner-outer phenomena happening in human psychological development, where you're being forged into identity. So you've got the inner being, the soul, which is not cultural, it's not familial. When we all leave this place, we're not going to be Republican or Democrat. Really? Really? You think that? Don't play. I will read you. But the point being, you're going to go, the mystical journey is actually one of kind of going in reverse. So you get back to soul, is it not? What does that mean? It means you have to go through every part of this hologram that you've adapted as identity. And you have to ask, is it really me? Now, I'm going to tell you as a psychologist, yes, I would embrace that you have a contract to be you in a human way. I'm not saying just become an amorphous light and live life. No. I'm saying touch base with the soul so it can now come in as an alchemist in patterns of culture, society, and family, and re-feng shui in a way that is answering to the all is one truth. It's an inconvenient truth. That is. So most of you, everyone wants to kumbaya and say how much they love all is one until it hits the streets. What, you want all is one and build a border between here and Mexico? Really? Is that what we're going to do now? All is one but them? Where do you do that in yourself? Where do you do that in your own way? Because we all do. But my point is, this is to start to understand your holographic nature. There's so much going on in you. And when I do a reading, I could never read it all. I have to. That's why I'm like, give me the questions to get my compass. What in your contract's up for alchemy? That's all I'm interested in right now. I'm not interested in threading every single thing out that makes you you. Let's go for what is up for alchemy. What is up for transformational shift? What is up to make more room for the soul? That's what I'm looking for. And I would suggest you do the same, because you're not going to get traction otherwise in your own transformation, in your own next potential. So your system, you're coming up through this, and the teachings that I offer and Carolyn offer are about how to disidentify in ways that make room for the soul to come in, and then infuse its directives, its service, its esteem into your path. Now, back to Esteem-Systems. So you have a way in all of this that you're trying to get value, and that's defined by these patterns here. So we know in this culture, you'll get value inherently if you're physically attractive. You're going to get more value if you're a man versus a woman. You're going to get more value if you're straight versus gay. You're going to get more. You can just go down the line. How do we apportion what gets value? Know your esteem system. Know your system of creating value for your life. Because You already have patterns managing it. And now back to the codependent. If you get to the codependent bottom, or shadow rescuer bottom, or scapegoat bottom, scapegoat's an interesting archetype to look at. There are people, as I've seen in readings, that get esteem by being the waste dump bins for others. As messed up as that sounds. So if I'm a kid growing up in a family where I have a wicked queen mother that is a narcissist, because that's what that really is, it's an offshoot of the narcissist archetype, and she doesn't have a solar center in herself that generates warmth, light, creativity, maybe because culture wouldn't let her have that. And all she can do now is mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all, and it better damn well not be my kids. Because I'd never got to be my solar self in the world, so I'm going to take, as the narcissist does, light from the environment into the black hole that I am to try to get to a center of some kind. Because no one ever told me I was enough. So now, great example of an esteem system of a narcissist. You're dealing with someone that never ever was told, hey, you know what, you're awesome. Just because you're here. Well done. Keep breathing. You got it. They were told, no, you're never enough. You'll never be enough. And so they never get to see, I'm enough. So they're always grabbing for enough from the light of other people. You know, you've ever been in a room with a narcissist? It always comes back to feeding their vortex of the black hole versus the sun that generates through its own nuclear fusion, light, warmth, life, out. Hey, I'm a star, so are you. Let me show you. Narcissists never say that. But that's the esteem system of a narcissist. So your esteem system is sort of this center of gravity in whatever way it operates for everything. And you've got archetypes that are managing that for you. Now back to the codependent. If you're in a codependent esteem system, and I'm going to cover the scapegoat next, you get value by being needed. It's in the, you need me. Now we're back to the abandonment thing. Your needing me defends my fear of abandonment, defends against it. So I need you to need me. So please stay broken, wounded, and needing fixed, because I'm here to be needed. And in being needed, I know I have value to you. You want to know something about being psychically dirty? Yeah, good luck with your Epsom salt baths and your saging and smudging. Because if you have this pattern running your life, you're going to go right out there and roll in the dirt again, right after that bath. So this is the ground level, this is the grit of how you really get contaminated. Now, I need a drink of coffee after that. So let's look at the scapegoat as well, because it's an interesting example. And it points to the fact that your subconscious, if you approach the subconscious mind and what it does as part of the human psyche, from a place of expecting it to operate on some conscious logic, you will never understand what it does. Because we could all look at the codependent, like I just mentioned, and go, that's really messed up. Like, why would my system decide, oh my God. What are you going to do in a 5-year-old psyche? Philosophize your way into a new esteem system? No. So similarly with the scapegoat archetype, and this might be you, there's a sense of, you know how I get value? The codependent gets value in being needed. The scapegoat gets value in being the person that absorbs the dark of everyone else. A scapegoat is someone who receives the shadow projections of other people. So basically, you become the toxic dump of everyone else. Unfinished business. You know, the blame from everybody. You're getting scapegoated. Did you create the mess? No. But the scapegoat goes, oh, give me your dirt. Give me your sin. Because then I know I matter to you. Get it? And now, these are examples for you to find in yourself. Maybe that meditation we just did, examples for your own life, for your own system. This is how, now back to health, I get sick. These all sound very sick patterns, right? Because they are. But not from a moral place. It's technical. It's a technology. What else are we going to do? So I want you to understand something about your esteem system also. And that is, we all begin with what I call ego esteem. And this is esteem. And in psychology would say, okay, you build up esteem by doing esteemable things. So this is where we look at how they esteem kids in school. You get a gold star. Oh, good for you. Good for you. You didn't cry today. Good for you. I mean, now it's, you brushed your hair. Fantastic. But the point being, that there's nothing right or wrong about that, folks, by the way. That's where we all begin. We all begin in building esteem through getting feedback from the environment. So the environment's going to tell you, good girl, good boy, but also bad girl, bad boy. And inherent in that, that's also, we have to look at this from the point of view and bring in shame again. There's a difference between telling someone, look, your behavior ain't so cool, or a child that, and saying, you're bad. One corrects behavior, one enforces an identity. You guys get that? Now, how were you all parented? Most of us, at least in my generation, we were told we were bad kids. They're bad kid, you're a bad kid, you're bad. Instead of, stop pulling your sister's hair, not cool. Now, this is where you start to map your own esteem system. How do you, question for you to live in, some more homework. Carolyn's gonna be like, what did you do to them? They're like, not even listening to me right now. I want you to map your own esteem system. How do you get value with other people? What patterns manage that? And don't go in, folks, never go into your psyche with judgment if you can help it. Because judgment's only going to push things further in the shadow. And the less you'll see. Yes. How do you get value with other people? And what archetypes manage that? And you're going to approach those questions with curiosity. Just like I do a reading. Going, oh, this is interesting. I wonder what my psyche will reveal. You might already have some good coordinates there. It might be also useful to start with your patterns first and go, okay, these are my patterns, I know them. I can look at behaviors and habits and things I do and give it a name. And then go, okay, well, what's the esteem system about here? So for example, I gave you the scapegoat, I gave you the codependent, let me give you the victim esteem system. Who wants some of that, right? The victim gets esteem, and I'm telling you, it sounds so messed up, but it's just what's true. By being a victim. So long as, because in being a victim as an identity, now there's a difference between you're a victim because you have a victimizing experience, which we all will have at some point in our lives or have had. That's just part of being human. We're all going to experience victimization. And Carolyn named the victim archetype as one of the 4 survival archetypes in her Sacred Contracts model very appropriately. Because it is a fundamental human experience. We all feel victimized by something. So I wouldn't go into that with any judgment, but rather the key becomes, when has a victimizing experience been made into an identity for you? So such that it filters perception. It's how you approach life. It's how you approach every experience. It's how you approach the unknown. In the victim archetype, life is always coming at you and about ready to do you wrong. There's no sense of magical trust in the unknown or potential or divine grace. It's life's about ready to do me in. Here we go. But there's an esteem system underneath that. That if you watch people really rooted in this archetype in identity ways, you can see it. You can see the power bump they get every time. It's so screwed up, but the power bump they get every time they get victimized. Ooh, I just got victimized. Great, now I can pull power from everybody into my victim story and keep this identity alive. And now I matter because, oh, look what happened to me. Oh, don't laugh. I will read you. I will read you. But seriously, so where are you at in that? And I'm just giving you examples because you'll have your own archetypes and various degrees of this going on and creating your esteem system. Now, the ego esteem system is identity-based. It's environmentally informed. We're going to get value, and I don't think there's anything right or wrong about it. It's got a lot of vulnerability. So if I'm someone rooted only in ego esteem, and most notably wounded ego esteem, which is what those archetypes connect to, everything is only going to, the only thing that's ever going to give me value is my achievement in the world, or my praise, or my applause, because it's all going to have to be environmentally triggered and activated. But there's something else that comes online on the mystical path called Soul-Esteem. And the best way I can language what that is, and we're going to go into this in more depth, is it's sort of, to me, I like to use the example of Buddha's enlightenment for this. In Buddha's final moment of enlightenment, he tries this ascetic path, and he's eating only rice and standing on one leg and sitting in lotus and all this stuff, and he's still not enlightened. He's like, this is not working. So he finally decides, well, I'm going to go sit under the Bodhi tree, and I'm going to hang out there until it finally happens. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. So Mara, of course, starts throwing temptation after temptation at him, women and all this stuff, and he's just like, no, I'm good. Finally, Mara gets him, and she gets him in his esteem. And she goes, hey, Buddha, what makes you think you're worth enlightenment? And then Buddha went, put his hand on the earth and did his mudra. And he said, you know what, Mara? I'm worth enlightenment because I'm here. Boom. That's Soul-Esteem. Now translate that was his enlightenment. He went, you know what? It's just because I'm here. That's it. That's it. Soul-Esteem is a force in you. I also think of it as a grace that says, I have value because I'm part of the holographic nature of life, because I'm alive, because I'm breathing. And even when I'm not breathing, I'll have value. I have value just because I am. Done. Done. If I were to go into each of your systems and inject this truth and say, listen, you're enough, and it could activate in you, what would you do then? I want you to use that as a marker, because what you'll see likely is that all of your motivation, all of your ambition, all of your drive to heal your life is motivated by, I got to get to being enough. So Soul-Esteem is, I'm already enough, period. There's nothing I can do to be more. There's nothing I can do to be less. I've always been enough. I'll always be enough. I've never not been enough. I'm just enough. So now what? What do I do with this life I've got? Crap. Everything used to be motivated by trying to get to enough, but if I'm enough, now what do I do? That's Soul-Esteem. You guys feel that? So like grace, you can't make it happen. You can only align. And what I've learned in readings, and in myself truly as well, is that alignment is an ongoing verb. You will forever in this life be dancing between ego esteem, wounded ego esteem, and soul esteem. My best intention for all of you is start to tip the scale towards soul esteem more and more. And you can't effort it in the way where I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to fix myself and then I'll get to soul esteem. That's wounded ego esteem talking right there. You start with enough, period. So let's take soul esteem to some of your darker patterns. Do you feel, because you might have an addiction, that you're not enough? Soul-Esteem would go, no, actually you're enough right now. Addictions are also part of God, by the way, so everything's all is one or not. So addictions are part of God too, by the way. So is your jealousy, so is your greed, so is your hate, so is your fear. There's no choose love over fear in mystical truth. It's all part of God. What are you doing? You're in shame. You're in shame-based paradigms of seeing God. So soul-esteem becomes this new force that can truly neutralize a rogue archetype in your system and keep you psychically clean and healthy. If you're not driven from shame-based wounded esteem, then what's motivating your life? And that's when you start to look at the mystical heart activating. This party that goes, the bodhisattva in you, that goes, look, yeah, I got my own enlightenment, this is great, but what about them? They're part of me too. So the bodhisattva in Buddhism, and it's actually an archetype I've seen in soul contracts, is a pattern that says, look, even though I've got my own enlightenment, I'm still going to reincarnate because they're not free yet, and they're part of me. So I got to get back down on that mud ball and start kicking it. So in Soul-Esteem, what activates intentionality, motivation, and ambition is I'm connected to everything, so therefore I give a shit. And I'm going to do something to help life, help others. But it's not I'm trying to get to enough in helping them. I'm expressing I'm already enough in helping them. You guys get it? I'm a one-take wonder. I don't know why you guys keep having me do these takes again. I probably won't say it exactly the same way, but you want me to say to give a shit again? Is that in Soul-Esteem and in service, soul service, what comes online is it's not that you go into Soul-Esteem and you go neutral and just float around. Your mystical heart activates, and then that drives everything. And what drives you is a different base of power, a different base of intention, a different base of ambition. What's driving you is, I care about people because they're part of me. The mystical truth, all is one, is active in my system in a way I've never known before. And therefore, it's not about me being enough anymore. It's about I'm already enough. I have to express that truth in helping other people. It changes the whole game. And what's most awesome about it is that is a sustainable ambition, a sustainable intention, a sustainable motivation. And it doesn't clip out your own human limits. You're so dialed into your enoughness that you honor those limits and go, look, I'd like to help, but I'm so tired today. I need a nap. I'll see you tomorrow. The codependent doesn't have limits. You need help? Okay. You need more money? Okay. You need rescued over there? Okay. Even though I have no money, I am exhausted. You guys see the difference there? In Soul-Esteem, you're dialed into you. And you're like a star. You're not the black hole, you're a star. But even stars have to go and set. And there has to be a nighttime. And you understand that. And you know sometimes the best medicine is not to help somebody. And it activates your intuitive system in a completely different way. Your intuitive system, when you are in one of these archetypes of survival adaptation that's primarily driving your life through wounded ego esteem, it's not going to get those clear service downloads from heaven. Because any download that comes through is going to get filtered and distorted by your shame, by your I'm not enough, I got to do this, I got to get to enough. You know, I know you can see other people, even in my field, that are constantly on Facebook, constantly on Twitter, constantly on Instagram, as if I got to stay relevant to you, so let me just be in your face 24/7. Instead of, you know what, when I got something to say, I'll see you there. Meanwhile, I'm skiing with my buddies in Aspen. Have a good time. Live your life. Hope you enjoyed the course. I'll be back later. We'll connect. So what you see blown up in this internet age too, of social media too, is this whole blow up of the urgency and graspiness of influencers trying to be influencers, trying to, what? What alignment is that? Surely we all have to be present and in life to help each other, but, you know, not at the expense of your own center. So in Soul-Esteem, you don't do things at the expense of your own self-connection. You do things from self-connection.
I hope you enjoyed Lesson 2, Archetypes and Your Esteem-Systems. This 3-part web course continues with Lesson 3, which is called Mystically Managing Your New Psychic Nervous System. In this next and final lesson, I will teach you how to merge and use your psychic and intuitive systems as one force. I'll also teach you how the internet has given you a new psychic nervous system and what that means for your health. We'll also look at the esteem system of your shadow archetypes and much, much more. I hope you enjoyed Lesson 2, and I'll see you next in Lesson 3. Namaste.